Hi, I'm Demi, founder and CEO of You're the Book Press and editor-in-chief of Self Pub Magazine and foster mommy of the Easter Bunny Brothers for just this 10 minutes of my life, and I'm so excited. Welcome. We're excited to have author Dori Hoch in the studio with us today. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm fine.
I'm so glad you made it here today. You shared a little bit with me about the essential Doriness of this universe. What's that about?
Well, a lot of things can happen to me, like I can be disaster prone, but I always look at it, if things don't go well, it always is a good writing story. There's always a story involved.
That's beautiful. So if you're sitting at home today wondering when disaster is about to strike next in your life, or the other shoe to drop, or you look down and the other shoe doesn't match, know that we understand. So your advice would be?
Go with the flow, and you know, there's always a solution there somewhere. So you just have to have a positive outlook.
I think Clifford the Big Red Dog did that all the time.
Yes,
he was pretty disaster prone too.
Right.
Tell us about this beautiful schoolhouse we see.
Okay. My first book, and I've always liked to write. First of all, I'm a retired teacher, so schools.
Oh, where did you teach at?
I taught in the Fleetwoods and Wilson school districts in Berks County,
Pennsylvania. Okay.
Okay. And I've always, when I taught, I loved to teach writing. I taught first grade for many years and some other grades as well. But I love to teach writing, and I like to be able to have my students write their stories and write their stories well, because we all have stories to tell.
What grade did you teach?
First grade, fifth, seventh, you know, depending upon the year. But like writing was always the thing I enjoyed. And because I wanted kids to give them that power. And once they knew that they could tell their stories, they wanted to write them and write them as well. And so that was the important part. They loved to share, and that motivated the whole progression.
But you taught in a contemporary school,
right?
And so what was this represent?
Well, I used to go to family picnics, and I'd hear my mother-in-law and her sisters talk about their days in the one-room school. And I realized that it was so different than the traditional schools of today. The kids would never know what it was like. So I knew that when I retired and I had time, I wanted to write a story about a girl in a one-room school. So the kids, other than Little House on the Prairie, I didn't think there were many books out there about that. So that was my goal, and to also get it published. So I wrote this a while ago, and actually got an article in Berks County Living on actually my visit to a Mennonite one-room school, a present-day one-room school. And that was neat, but I had anyway, it took me a while before I finally got Pearl of Richmond School published.
We had an author in our first year of the book writers group who taught in a one-room schoolhouse. She's in her 90s and just a stupendous person. Her and one of her students who became a teacher were creating a book about one-room schools. So I just love the way that serendipity brought us together today. What would you think are some of the things that distinguish one-room schools from how our kids learn today?
I think that probably a sense of community.
Why is that?
In one-room schools, the children all had to really be supportive of one another, or one teacher couldn't have taught 8 grades in one day.
Okay.
So I think that
Did the older students help out?
The older students helped out the younger ones. And I noticed that when I went and visited the present-day one-room school and the Mennonite school. They were all working together, and so it was like a community. And I think it's hard, especially in some of our big schools today, that you have 5 first grades or 6 first grades and so on, of all the grades up. It's hard to get that small sense of community, of everybody working together and caring. And I think that's the asset of the one-room school.
What were, like today, my child will go to school and the books are handed to him. What was the study like in a one-room schoolhouse?
More basics. You know, you had your reading, you had your math, grammar, spelling. Then in the afternoon they would have more combined subjects like maybe history and geography. Elocution and handwriting were probably the 2 biggest things that
Repeat after me. Elocution.
hello, cute.
How do they talk?
They would do poems, and elocution would be that sense of recitation in front of the whole class. And
It's really a dying art.
it is. You don't have that. And also handwriting. Handwriting. Like Perfect Peterson. I mean, that was something that
We're dating
Yeah.
ourselves.
But kids today don't know that at all. And it's interesting in some of my research for this, and I have a sequel coming out on Pearl 2. It's called Pearl and the Schoolyard Prank. But in the 1920s and 30s, even school board notes were all done in cursive writing before we came along with the typewriters and the computers of today. So
And cursive's no longer being taught in many places.
yeah, so it's a totally different world. But I think the sense that also the family, that was so important that they did well in school. Because these rural kids, that was their chance. And if they did well and they got through past 8th grade, they could go to the local high school, but they had to do well and pass an exam. And if you've ever seen a copy of some of those exams, we would have trouble passing them today, the questions they asked.
Wow. So that's our ticket to the next level of education and possible employment. Fantastic. When you retired, what do you do with your time now?
Well, I have been busy. I started a local writers group with my church.
Good for you. What's it called, or where does it meet?
We just meet once a month at one of our houses. I guess it's a St. Paul's writers group. But
if someone from our viewing area wanted to join, how could they reach you?
well, they could contact me. I'm on my website, dorihoch.com.
Dori Hoch, we'll put that up at the end.
My email address is on there. Just let them know if they'd like to join in.
Wonderful.
Okay, so in the process after Pearl, then I came along with the Easter Bunny Brothers. That story was, I was visiting my grandchildren who live in Alabama, and I was reading them. It was around springtime. I was reading them a lot of stories and Easter stories, and I thought, I can write an Easter story. And I just, for a change of pace, for what I usually wrote on my writers group, I wrote a fiction story, and the group loved it, and I didn't do anything with it for about a year, and then I ran into one of my old friends who said her friend was an illustrator and she just had a book published, and I said, let me see that book. And when I saw her published book, I thought, I bet she could make my bunnies come to life.
And this is Jane
Wolfgang, who does a fantastic job. She had been an art teacher in the Governor Mifflin School District and had moved and was looking for an opportunity. She wanted to go into illustrating, and she just... When I saw Benjamin and Bobby, I knew she had brought them to life.
Oh, now who brought them to sewing?
Well, that was another story. Like I told you, I'm full of stories. I was going to try to get a pattern and make, because I knew I was going to go out and read this to a lot of schools, and I wanted to have a stuffed bunny.
It's perfect for story time.
I went to Joanne Fabrics.
Okay.
And the patterns there just weren't very good. But the lady who helped me, she said, the sales lady says, can I help you? And I said, well, I want to make these bunnies, and I had the book with me. And she said, well, you're never going to find a pattern like that. And I said, no, I don't think so either. She said, but I make stuffed bunnies. I make stuffed, I guess it was teddy bears out of mink coats, old mink coats.
Really?
Her name is Kelly Breen, and she made up the pattern for me. And I took 2 sewing lessons at Joanne's, and together we worked on them, and then I finished them. And Bobby and Benjamin were created in 3D form.
Oh, well, they are just stupendous, and I picture a whole series. This is Bobby, and this is Benjamin. I picture a whole series of them.
Well, not only was the first Easter Bunny Brothers was the first book, but of course we have the Bunny Brothers First Thanksgiving, and of course they're going to have more adventures.
Oh, absolutely. There are too many holidays to waste. But watch out for Groundhog Day. That Puxatawny Phil's a sneaky guy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see the next books.
Okay, thank you.